look at what we're all wearing, it looks like one of those card games when you have to match up who's wearing what. Because Tabby and Kevin look like they have the same shirt, and Carol and I look like we have almost the same shirt. It's one of those like.
You are right.
Are live. And then
Okay,
Marilyn.
so
Yeah, flannel.
I am calling the what is today's date? The January 12th meeting of the Snow Library Board of Trustees to order. As usual, the meeting will be streaming live on the YouTube channel for the town of Orleans, and will be available for viewing after the fact as well. If anyone plans to record this meeting themselves, they should please let me know before doing that. And I think that's all the preliminaries. So welcome, everyone. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our December 8th meeting. I think everybody saw that Tavi sent out a revised version of that, I think yesterday. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at that. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, it looks like unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next order of business is my report as the chair of the trustees. I have a few items to share with you. I want to let you know I have submitted the annual report as required by the town for Snow Library. The themes were, as you can imagine, fairly obvious, mostly dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the great response from Tavi and his staff in terms of coping with that. If anyone would like to see a copy of that, I'd be happy to email you a copy, sometime after the meeting today, as such. So you can just drop me a note and I'll be happy to shoot you off that. I also want, some of you may be aware already that the town is reviewing its town charter. That's done, I think, every 7 years, I believe. I got an email as the chair of the Snow Library Board from the Charter Review Committee Chair, John Fuller, asking for input if I had any, and to share that with you all. So after this meeting, sometime in the next day or so, I will send you all a copy of that email so you can see it. And if you have interest in taking a look at what their work entails and or providing them any feedback, you certainly have that opportunity to do, as any citizen in the town of Orleans does. And the third item I have is, as some of you may already be aware, if you're a member of the Citizens Forum, on Monday, January 25th, the Citizens Forum is hosting a program on the possibility of a community center here in the town of Orleans. I know Kevin is participating in that forum. It's 5:30 to 7, again, Monday, January 25th. So if you have any interest in that, I urge you to attend to see what might be possible in that realm.
Mr. Chair, can I just add?
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
This, I believe, just so people know, we don't have a site, we don't have any capital, this is just beginning a conversation. So
Right.
I think thanks to the Orleans Citizens Forum, they're encouraging folks to share ideas. I know the folks that have organized this, and I've just played a small role, are really doing a nice job preparing a presentation, including a lot of folks to spur ideas. So we're really in the idea stage, generating ideas, conversation.
Thank you, Kevin. John?
I have a question. Kevin, is tonight the Governor Prince presentation at 5:30?
It is. It's the first pass at feedback through the survey instrument that was posted. I believe it closed on Saturday. So the consultant has been rapidly working on a presentation just to give us a first glimpse of the feedback. And again, it should actually inform further feedback and maybe refinement. But yeah, 5 o'clock today.
5 or 5:30? 5:30, I think.
Let me scan that.
It's 5:30.
It is 5:30. Thank you.
Is that an open, on the, or do you get invited to it?
You'll see the Zoom link, Mel, if you go on the town's calendar.
Got it. Okay.
And you'll see the link right there for the Zoom, but it's a joint meeting of the three bodies, the Affordable Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Committee, and Select Board. But we
Okay.
really do hope, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Steve, for a lot of participant interest, both viewers on Channel 18, but participants that want to chime in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then, our next item on the agenda is the financial report. Which I guess, once again, Tavi, I'm wondering if you could walk us through that.
Sure.
given,
Sure. The town salaries, $46,233.97 expenditures for December. Under town operating expenses, the year-to-date so far, $73,276.38, and that includes $13,767.73. That's half of the clams payment. We paid roughly $13,000 of it before, and this is the other encumbrance that we're encumbering to pay the rest of it when we get the bill. Under the Friends for December expenditures, the financial publications, the business connection, internet, copies and periodicals and water, $8,865.66. And then for children's programs under December's expenditures, $196.81. Under the revolving funds, under contributions for December, $85.71. Those are for the 3 T-Mobile new wireless hotspots, which are in processing right now and will be available soon. And then actually 2 general contributions that together equaled $165.10. Under the Cummings Special Collections account, someone purchased a postcard for $5 under deposits. And then finally, under the miscellaneous trust funds, the deposits for December, $1,000 estimated interest for the month of December. And that's the report, financial report.
Any questions or comments for Tavi on the report? Tavi, I had one question, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm. I always look at the percentage of the budget utilized versus where we are in the year, and I know that the books, materials, if I think I'm reading that right, is higher. It's 57%, but I'm assuming that's just the kind of normal in terms of how things get paid out through the year. Is that accurate?
Yes, and probably a little higher this year because we've all of us on the staff have had more time to do book and material ordering because our programming is down. Normally we'd spend more of it on programming, but because of the COVID-19 situation, a lot of the programs are online programs, and so we're able to do a little more ordering. So, but we are watching that, and so we're going to make sure that we don't run out of that before the end of the year, although we do have other funds we can use. But normally at the end of the year, we're normally behind in our ordering. And so I think this year is an anomaly in that we're ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions? Okay. Again, over to you, Tavi, for your director's report.
Thank you. The status of library operations, we are continuing to provide contactless curbside service. There's no date yet set to try to resume open browsing hours. I'm still routinely meeting with other library directors in the area, but because all the surrounding towns most of them are in the red and have high risk factors, none of the libraries right now are considering open browsing. We had a Snow Library member contract COVID-19, and she has been recuperating and quarantining for the requisite number of days. She has returned to work. Unfortunately, earlier today, I got a phone call that another staff member has been exposed to people who are testing positive, and so she is waiting to find out if she needs to quarantine. So we may have another person out for quarantining, and we've been in this situation with having people waiting to see the last few weeks straight, usually one person every week with something relating to that. And due to the heightened sense of awareness of a staff member having it, we're trying to be even more vigilant with making sure of social distancing among the staff. We never had an issue with the mask wearing. Everybody's been wearing masks here, and we're continuing to do the curbside service and ensuring people that we're trying to keep them as well as the staff as safe as possible during all of this.
So Tavi, the second case of
Mhm.
someone coming, it wasn't a case of that staff person being in contact with your other staff person. It was with someone else.
No, it was through a family member who interacted with another person and then find out that they were positive and then inform the person and so forth. So fortunately, we have not had anyone that I'm aware of get it from anybody here.
Great.
And not from interaction with patrons either. It's been family members interacting with others outside. In the board secretary position, I'm still in the process of trying to hire a board secretary. I've received numerous job applicants, and now just had the fourth offer declined for it. So I particularly want to thank once again profoundly Melody Gulo for her continued willingness to take the minutes and do such a wonderful job for it. But I am still pursuing that, and in fact, I sent out another inquiry for an interview today. The capital improvements plan, we had discussed at the last meeting about sending a memo, an email to our town administrator, John Kelly, asking for the $100,000 in the capital improvements plan that was originally for FY22, the design development phase of the building program for the grant, to be moved back to FY23, even though based on our current information, we don't think the grant round will be announced in FY23. I spoke with Steve about it, and we think that it's probably best to do it 1 year at a time, simply because if an opportunity presents itself, we don't want to miss out. So doing it 1 year at a time seems to be the way to go on that. And the Susan Kelly Memorial Bench, I sent all the information electronically to her son, and he's sharing it with family members. And so where we are right now with that is I'm waiting to hear back from him about their choice for a bench and a plaque. And then what I would do is I would present it to the board for your approval. And if you think it sounds good, then I would work with the DPW department on that. And the youth services report, Anne has been doing some really wonderful things virtually. She has a family movie night pack, and part of that is to encourage the use of Hoopla. Back in April, the library purchased Hoopla, which is streaming films, because people weren't coming into the library to get DVDs. And I think Hoopla's been utilized quite well, but there's always room for more people getting interested in it. So this was a wonderful way to introduce people to it. So she has a kit with a bag of microwave popcorn and a movie genre selector, a list of movie trivia questions, and then a list of books that have been turned into movies. We always want to have the book part of it in there as well to encourage it. And then she's also has some crafts. Take and make craft kits are available for people to pick up, and they've been very popular. One is a dragon craft kit, and the other one is a catapult. And believe it or not, Anne's always working, having to look ahead. And so she's already working on the summer reading program. She applied for 2 Cultural Council grants. And the 2 programs that she's getting are Jungle Gym and Bates and Ticknell, which she's had for many years. They're the 2 programs that are the most well attended and the most popular. And the question, though, is what format the summer reading program is going to be in. And that now is the question that a lot of programming committees are discussing. And so we'll have to wait and see how that works out. We have a lot of libraries, if they are going to do some in person, they're talking about doing it outside. So those are the kind of conversations we're having right now. And then Anne's been doing the weeding section in the fiction. She's been weeding the fiction section. And again, she's quite ahead in the weeding project, I think, because of the lesser programming that we're doing because of COVID-19. And she's always in touch with the Orleans Elementary School librarian to do a Zoom meeting with various different grades. This is the 1st grade she's going to work with now. And she's attending a Cultural Council Zoom meeting to discuss the grant for the permanent story walk in Orleans. And then she continues to give readers advisory over the phone and help patrons with their requests. And I do have to say that this is not only regarding youth services, but Anne has been so active and helpful with us doing adult services as well, particularly with all of the vacancies that we've had right now with people quarantining and people being out. So Anne has been helping us out. So, and she does her work in the adult library section is as great as her work in the youth services too. And it's been greatly appreciated, not only by me, but by staff as well. So. And that's my report.
Any questions for Tavi, Joan? You're on mute, John.
Yeah, we're up ahead on mute, sorry. Tavi, so 3 people that applied, they knew what the job was. And then after you offered it, they turned it down. Was there any reason given?
Well, no. And I think the issue is that because I really wanted them to get a good understanding of the job, I sent them sample minutes and I sent them videos of the meetings. And after they saw them, then they turned them down. So I think they might, I think sometimes people might not realize all that's involved in it. I think the issue is, in one case, is that because I was pursuing opportunities with some of them, another person got another offer. And so, that was kind of just late. I think maybe she might have taken it, but got another offer in that case. But I think I haven't heard any other reason other than I think, they see what's involved and maybe it might have been a little more than they were thinking it was.
And that's so interesting because they went through the whole.
So Tavi, I assume as you were talking about summer and programs, then part of that thinking anyway and planning is maybe the possibility of putting a tent up.
Yes, Anne and Kaimi are working with other library, listening to what other libraries are doing and getting information and feedback. So that could very well, we've kind of had discussions about that. The issue is though, it gets complicated, how big of a tent, what kind of a tent, all the details. And the thing is, it would definitely need trustee approval. And I would need to contact the town about it to make sure we're following all the rules. So before anything like that happens in our meetings between Kaimi and Ann and I've just said, we need to get details, because you definitely would want to have details on all of this before we go ahead with it. And I certainly know the town would want details about it too. So, but yes, we are having those discussions. It sounds like the libraries that are thinking of going ahead with the in-person summer programs, they're all doing something, it seems, that are involving outdoors and tents rather than inside the building.
Right, that sounds sensible to me. Kevin, did you want to make a comment?
Just a quick one, and I am sure Tavi is up to speed on this from the town administrator, but for you and the trustees, in the year-end federal bill that extended the CARES Act, essentially, it wasn't called that, but the money that was able to be used for, and it's a significant allocation that Orleans was provided for above and beyond cost due to COVID, were extended all the way to the end of 2021. So as Tavi's looking at this extra above and beyond, I believe it could be submitted for up to 75% reimbursement. And I'm sure you'd be tracking that, Tavi, and working with John and Kathy on that.
Great.
Right.
Mary Beth,
Thank you.
you're muted.
Sorry about that. Tavi and Kevin, would the tent be located on the village green? Could it stay up all summer? Could it be used by the Friends for book sales, or would it have to be erected and taken down after?
Well, the thought, our thinking, actually, Kaimi and Anne, or at least Kaimi I know, and I know Kaimi and I met with Tracy Sally from the Friends. We had discussed an idea about a tent. This is a few months back. But the place that we would be looking at the tent would be outside the children's area, because it would be mostly for children's programs.
Okay. Is that a enough area?
And as far, it is a large enough area, and but whether it would be, what you'd call a permanent tent, whether the stakes would stay in the ground and the tent cover, the canvas would be taken down, what the material will be made out of, all the different, we have to explore all that, what would be best and what would work best for the town. As I said, the DPW would definitely be involved in it. We would discuss it with them. And also I'd need to find out, I don't think, we wouldn't have an issue in the sense that it would be on library property. So the only thing I would need, I believe, is your approval, trustee approval for it. But I don't know anything else. I would definitely be having a conversation with town administration before we went ahead with anything like that.
Great creative thinking. Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions or comments for Tavi? Okay, thank you, Tavi.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a report from the Friends. Over to you, Carol.
Okay. All right, well, we had a virtual annual meeting, which was not as well attended as we had anticipated or we had hoped. I guess that the lure of a cocktail or a glass of wine and nice little sandwiches over there at the Historical Society brings in a lot more members than sitting in their living room watching us talk on Zoom. So nonetheless, we followed the rules of the bylaws and did have a very nice annual meeting. The lifetime learning, as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, is up and moving. Those people are amazing the amount of work that they put into this. And there's several people that really deserve a great deal of credit for getting it going. And people are signing up crazy in droves. The membership, we have accrued $14,555 so far, which is pretty nice, plus 6,000 in donations, which some comes along when somebody's doing a membership, signing in their membership, they put in a lot more than their membership is requiring, which is great. So that's good. The Financial Advisory Committee is going to meet with Cape Cod 5 on January 20th, which is also something that they have to do in the bylaws. We have established a new socially responsible investment part of our investment. They're taking some money and putting it into stocks that are considered socially responsible investment. I think this is all done with with the Cape Cod 5 people. We did give a Christmas gift to the staff, which was well received because we usually have a nice little party for them too, but that didn't happen. So I think that is about what's been cooking for us. We'll get back online and have our meeting soon. But at any rate, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Any questions for Carol?
Well, good or bad.
Thank you, Carol.
You're very welcome.
I'm not aware of any other reports at this point. And I don't, do we have any old business? Okay, so we can move right ahead to new business. So you can see there's two items listed there. There might be a little overlap between them, but not necessarily. So the first item is, I think you remember from when we took a look at the action plan for this, the revision of the action plan, which I think Tavi presented to us back in October, I think it was. And was approved by the MBLC, within the month after as such, and was attached in the packet that went out for today's meeting. The one item in particular there that we asked to actually adjust in terms of the timeline is this one, the satisfaction survey to be accomplished. Well, actually, if you look at the action plan, it actually says to design the survey by FY22, but there's no reason that it has to take, that we couldn't implement it, in that kind of timeline either. I think that's to be determined. That's an area where potentially I think the trustees could get involved and work with Tavi and his team in thinking out the strategy and design of the survey. So that's something I thought it'd be good to begin a discussion about today. But before we start that, I think I'd also just like to talk a little bit about the next item as well, so we can kind of think about them maybe somewhat holistically. And that is, it occurred to me, and Tavi had already been thinking about this, that our current five-year strategic plan runs, if some of you I know were involved in actually creating that plan, runs from 2017 to 2022. So it's now January 2021. So we have a little bit of time to think about what kind of process we want to put together and timetable for creating a new 5-year plan. This is pretty important because just like the action plan, it's a state requirement to actually have a current 5-year strategic plan to be eligible for state funds of a couple of different varieties, which are obviously important for ongoing health of Snow Library. So that's why I asked Tavi to include the current plan in the packet for today's meeting. And so we could really begin, and I think it's just begin a discussion about how to think about a process for both these items, actually. And what makes sense. The long range plan specifically really is our responsibility, obviously working with Tavi to create the satisfaction survey. I think when you start thinking about long range planning and developing a strategic plan, typically there's a survey component associated with that, along with other mechanisms to get feedback from your constituents. And whether these are two separate surveys, I think is possible. Could it be one survey that accomplishes both objectives? I'm not sure about that, but it's certainly worth thinking about. So that's what I'd like. So I'd like to basically kick off a discussion around these items, and one that we can obviously continue over the next several meetings as we really think about what is the process we want to put in place, for these. Has everybody had a chance to review the current strategic plan? I guess the final thing I'll say before really opening it up is the Massachusetts Board of Library, the MBLC's Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners website does have a rich set of resources associated with developing strategic plans that I'd be happy to, you can go to their website. It's not very hard to find it, but we can certainly follow up appropriately with, direct links to all of you if that would be helpful. Mary Beth, I see you.
Yeah, I have a question. I think it's critical to get public input for this.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious to find out, to know, and maybe there's no answer yet, how successful the town has been in getting information from the survey about the motel property. How did you get a lot of responses? Did you get none? What?
Kevin?
Here, if I can, at 5:30 this evening, we'll all be hearing that.
Okay. So you don't know in advance.
Yeah, I do not have any insight, as I think the survey did complete on Saturday when they, shut down the link. So we're all going to be hearing, the news firsthand today. And I'll just, mention, if you guys do click on your chat button, and it's publicly available on the calendar of the town's website, that meeting today is at 5:30. It's broadcast, and there's a link for people who want to join. So we'll be hearing that firsthand. If I could add one other thing too, and it will be coming to a select board meeting, I'd say in another couple of weeks, is we have done with great response over, I believe, the last 3 town meetings, a post-town meeting survey. The last one we did at Nauset Beach on Halloween, great turnout to the event itself, but a really great response. The numbers, I think, were over 100, and I think 68 respondents to give us feedback on town meeting, what they liked, what they didn't. So I think you should anticipate, as Mary Beth, you're mentioning, you ask for the community, they'll give you feedback.
Okay. Well, I thought that survey was really I don't know whether it was, the questions were crafted to get the information you need, but it was easy peasy to do.
Yep.
And it was short enough that it was not onerous. So
Doable.
if we go that route, which I think we should consider that as one of the options, we need to keep that in mind. And that's just my observation.
Joan?
The Recreation Committee, we got over 350 respondents when we did the recreation survey.
Okay.
Really
And that was a great number, but we did have a subsequent Zoom meeting. And as the Friends person said, we had almost no one attend our Zoom meeting. I think that was harder to get that second round of people to give us more feedback. And I'm wondering about the Wayfinding Survey, how well they did. Because that got sent out a couple of times. Maybe we could ask Andrea Reed if she knows how well that survey did. Because it's a good point.
I mean, I think it seems to me, I mean, it's certainly good to know how successful previous bodies have been with their surveys, but, you know, regardless of their success rate or not,
You gotta go forward.
I think we're going to have to include that as part of our strategy. And it's just a question of how well we do publicizing it and getting it out there
I think
and designing it.
The rec one did well because it went to all the elementary and middle school parents. So that helps, you know, so it's having the right distribution list.
Right, right. Whether you do a mailing to every voting family or every voting citizen, you're
Right.
gonna have to spend the money to do that, to get the responses you need.
So I know there's several of you here that were involved in the last planning process, strategic planning process. I think Mary Beth, you were involved. Mary, I believe you were a part of that, right? And obviously Tavi was involved. I'm not sure if there was anyone else, but can you talk a little bit about how successful or not that process was?
Well, I can say I thought it was quite successful. Some of the notes I took from it, things to be thinking about, I think, is one of the first ones is a long-range planning committee. So we'll have to think about who we want to be on the committee. And most of the information that I've been getting on long-range planning, it comes from this book, the New Planning for Results, A Streamlined Approach by Sandra Nelson. That seems to be the one recommended by the MBLC, the Massachusetts Library System. And most of the librarians I speak with suggest that book. And so they say about having, when you form your committee, about having 2 or 3 staff members, 2 or 3 trustees, 2 or 3 friends, and 2 or 3 members of the community. That pretty much is the makeup of it. And then you have to determine who your stakeholders are in the community. And I remember the last time we did it, we sent out invites to the stakeholders. And probably another big question too that we'll have to think about is a facilitator for those groups, for those focus groups. Typically, you have someone who does these exercises or analyses, like they have SOAR, SOAR, the strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results, or SWOT is another one, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So a facilitator will lead you through that, and then you take all of the results and for the rest of the meetings, and you put them all together, and you share at some point those results, and then you use those to create that long-range planning document. So those are just some of the things for us to be thinking about.
Thank you, Tavi. So, you know, I'm just thinking about this. Obviously, there's a fair amount of planning associated with this. And as I was scanning the MBLC site just prior to the meeting, and maybe Tavi, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I got the impression that we would need to submit the plan to them by October of next year of 22 for it to
21?
kick off for 23. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, when I've had quite a few back and forth conversations with Rob Favini and Amy Clayton. They're the two people on the MBLC, and they said depending on the ending date of your last plan. So I was kind of looking at a target date of the end of the fiscal year. So I was looking more at June 30th of 2022, as opposed to October. But you could have that as October. I could ask as we're going along if we want more time to have it extended. I certainly don't think that would be an issue. But because I figured that since it ends in FY22, and since FY22 ends in June of 2022, that it would be good to submit it by then. And I think basically Amy and Rob both said, either date would be acceptable, but I was kind of thinking at least as a target to go with the June date.
Okay, I guess I was thinking October only because the 5-year plan doesn't say fiscal year.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that's yeah.
So
It's another way of looking at it. I mean, I asked them and they kind of said, well, as long as you're on target, as long as you're, kind of within those few months, I think we're fine.
right. Well, that's not a point to be determined right today, but I think it's an important point to determine as we go forward because, the end of June and the end of October, there's 3 months difference there or so. So in terms of the amount of work that needs to be done, I'm also just thinking in terms of engagement with the community. It's all well and good to, try to do that through Zoom, but it might be, I have yet to, in my experience with Zoom, I haven't participated in a kind of a breakout meeting, where, you're doing kind of group work, small group work and bringing it all back. I know that's possible with someone who is good at Zoom and can facilitate all that. But I'm just wondering if we'll be in a position by the fall, maybe, where we could actually imagine inviting people in physically, to venues that, and the longer delay we have, the more practical that might be. It's just part of what I've been thinking about anyway. So again, just something to consider.
Go ahead, John.
Steve, do you think that maybe it's at the next meeting, though, someone could take us through the current 5-year plan and sort of notate where they saw success and where there's still avenues that need to be pursued? Because I can read it, but I'm not really so sure what's been really hit the target or not, and what's a carryover, and what has sort of become obsolete potentially after 5 years. That would
Right, sure. Yeah, I can imagine. Mary Beth, go ahead.
Can I just ask, I'm math challenged in the last 6 months. So I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same timeline. If it's June 2022, isn't that 16 months away?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's, I don't think that there's a real rush to do it, but I think it would be prudent to move forward, because I'm expecting by summer that there's going to be a lot more activity, and that would be a time to get hustling on this and have the rest of the year to figure it out. So I prefer a sooner date than the June date than the October date, just so that you have a little time available if everything goes south.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about it in terms of absolute deadlines. That's all.
Yeah, okay. I think we're thinking the same thing. It's just that if you say October, I think, get a little lackadaisical about it. And then if we say June, I get a little more.
Well, I think in terms of organizing, and there's work we can, I mean, we need to start now, obviously. And going back to Joan's suggestion, Tavi, is that something that you think you could would be prepared to do at our next meeting to
Yes.
kind of walk us through the current plan and what you saw as what worked, what didn't, and not only that, but also in terms of what we've achieved, in terms of the goals and objectives that were set out and where we might be still a bit deficient or so.
Yes.
Great.
Yes,
thank you.
I go through the long range plan every year, so I've been making notations on it all along, so I
Right.
can present that at the next meeting.
That'd be great. Mary Beth?
One of the things I remember, and it's not a lot of information, but the stakeholders that were included, I think if there are suggestions for other people in the community that would be valuable members of that committee, I think that it would be helpful if anybody on the board or anybody in the greater community could volunteer and ask if there are other people that they think might add a perspective that the library needs to hear from. Because it's, as with everything, I remember not everybody got to all the meetings, so you heard a smattering of information from one person that got lost in the process. So my perspective.
So just to be clear, are you suggesting to try to identify what you termed as stakeholders outside of obviously us as members of the committee or as people to invite into the process?
Well, all right. So I think that's two different questions. That when I'm looking at the people who are on the committee the last time, all of these people are excellent choices. It just seems that there are other people out there that perhaps we could be thinking about that would give another perspective as the community changes and improve.
Well, I think that's all.
Feedback. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all up for us to discuss, I think, over the next few months as we really think about it. The other thing that's occurred to me is that, as we know, over the summer, we're going to get 3 new trustee members, hopefully.
Right.
So that'll be new voices, I
Right.
presume, somewhat new voices as well, and how to think about the involvement of, from the trustees, as such. And I don't want to minimize the amount of work associated with creating this new plan. I think it will be a lot of work.
Yeah.
and it won't be having, been involved with the Facilities Advisory Committee, that was a lot of work. But, we had a hired consultant to, wrote
to work
wrote
through
the thing.
right.
Right. In this case, I guess we could imagine, we could talk about hiring a consultant to, actually work with us to help create the plan. I think Tavi suggested a facilitator, but a facilitator is a little different than, a consultant to kind of help author the thing, right? So I think those are all things to to talk about, right? There's no reason if we decided to, we couldn't hire a consultant, to actually help us to actually, pull it all together, write drafts, for the committee as such, and do it. It's not like we don't have funds available to do that. It just, is that the best way to go or not? I think, again, things to consider as we work to put together a process on this. Right? Jan?
Tavi, how do you feel about that? What's
About
that?
The facilitator? Well, I think
Not hiring a consultant.
Well, I think either is fine. They recommend, the reason Steve mentioned that is because I was reading in this book and also from participating in other planning strategies. the book recommends you either need a facilitator or you need someone, they say a prominent member of the community to lead it. And the thing is, what they mean when they say lead the focus groups, you're going to need somebody who knows how to lead the SOAR analysis, the SWOT analysis. A lot of times you don't get a lot of participation from people. And so the facilitator, which is why they call them that, they have to kind of tease it out of people. They have to know the questions to ask. So I think, because I think sometimes I know with a lot of these, I've participated in a lot of these for other little things, not for long range library plans, but for other documents. And sometimes you have participants who they don't really communicate that much. And so it's up to the facilitator to get the information out of them for it to be very productive. So I certainly would think that a facilitator at least would be a great idea. And simply because I can't offhand think of any prominent member of the community who'd be willing to take that on, because there'd be at least 3, they recommend in this book, about 3 to 4 meetings. So you would need somebody at those 3 to 4 meetings leading.
And I agree with Tavi, because there's a cohesion when you have the same person hearing different voices. They can bring it together so that they, where I think in the last one, as I remember, there were desperate groups, so that each group had a different message or agenda. And sometimes I felt that it was hard to coordinate. But if you have a facilitator, that person can cut through that and pull it all together for you. Yeah.
So
All right, Mel.
when you did this last plan, there was no facilitator, Tavi?
No, there was. One of our trustees, Cheryl Bryan, was the facilitator.
Oh, okay.
Short-term memory's the first to go.
Okay.
My days.
So, Kevin?
Yeah, just a quick one. It goes to Mary Beth's ask about, others you might want to try to bring on board to help inform this. And I did scan the last strategic plan, and I noticed, because you do want to consider the physical space in terms of its comfort and support for your programs. And Ron Collins will kill me for even saying this, but he knows the facility inside out, and maybe not as a permanent member, but I think, you make sure you do include him in terms of giving his 2 cents in terms of how the library could, in its current state, we do know it's inadequate for sure, but build that in, because I do think it can help, whether it be maintenance efforts supported by the town's budget or even small capital planning efforts. That really is a way that have a go-to document that we can then build future budgets around. But whether he or others knowledgeable about the physical facility might be a good add-on.
Well, Ron was certainly helpful in the facilities committee, and I think, the good news is we do have that work, as at least one kind of foundation document to help us going forward, that there's a lot we can use out of that document that we won't have to recreate, so to speak. So I think key questions for us really are, at what point do we form this planning committee, right? And how to go about identifying an appropriate facilitator, and developing, essentially a timetable. Because I could, just thinking about it, it seems to me it's not impractical, to me anyway, that we could kick off this effort officially. I'm still not sure exactly when, whether we should kick it off this spring or wait till the summer. I'm still, in my own mind, thinking about, the notion of 3 new members to the trustees and as such. But, just for the sake of discussion, it seems to me potentially we could, kick this off in the summer and do the information gathering in the fall, and then write the thing in the winter, spring, so to speak, and have it, ready, as early as June, as Mary Beth had suggested. That's, I think, somewhat aggressive, but not impossible. Again, to think about. So I think in terms of next steps, we've agreed that at the next meeting, Tavi will kind of walk us through in more detail the current plan as to, how far we've gotten, what's still relevant or not. And we can all be thinking about, what makes sense in terms of a more exact timetable on this, and also a willingness to be involved, right? Because this will, be a significant, I think, commitment from anyone who, certainly any trustee who agrees to be involved. And I'll think about other possible members, stakeholders as such, also to be maybe approaching, to determine their interest. I guess one other, I'm sorry, John, I'll go to you in just a sec, but one other, I think, issue will be also in terms of at what point do we start thinking about survey design associated with the this planning process. John?
I have a couple of questions and thoughts. Kevin, is there any other group that you know of going through a 5-year planning process now? And if so, are they using a facilitator? I know the Cape Cod Commission just did one on climate, and they were very happy with that facilitator. So I'm thinking there might be some out there that, Tavi can interview, or Steve or someone to get us a sense of it, because there's a lot of this going on.
Direct answer, I do know, and it was actually funded through CPC funds last year for the historical commission. They're investigating, an architectural design area of town. And that would, be something to give a call to Ron Peterson in terms of how that's going. But they did hire Community Building Institute, and they are neutral relative to what they take on, whether it be wastewater. If you remember, they assisted us in that consensus plan, but they have really great staff, resources, and technology, to the point that, Steve, you were asking about, virtual versus in person. I would venture to guess we are probably going to see hybrid formats in the coming years, because in fact, the virtual one I was on that they facilitated, people had the polling questions put on the screen, and you had a few seconds to click an aye or no. And it really was rich in the fact that everybody saw the response. It get your thinking going. You didn't have to say, well, let's wait until next meeting. And you, as well as I know, you've lost your thought. And, all of that working together is really powerful. But at the same time, like you said, Steve, you do want to be in person to do that. So I think we're going to see that introduced. But Joan, to your question, short order, yes, Historical Commission, they're working with a facilitator. Great place to check out how it's working out.
I know I went to the Complete Streets one. I was not very impressed with how that went. It had breakouts, but they were just too tough. And maybe it was just new technology and people had to get used to it, but you sort of got cut off. My other question is, if we want someone from the library staff, I'm thinking Anne, because she does such a nice job with youth, would these meetings be during the day, Tavi, so that she's not putting in overtime? If you want staff members?
Yeah, the way it worked the last time is that with staff, they were during the day. Most all the meetings were during the day. And then there was one community forum, and that was in the evening.
So what about the notion of the satisfaction survey that is part of the action plan? Where do people have thoughts at this point as to whether that potentially could be rolled into the survey work associated with this long-term planning, or whether it would have to be distinct?
I would think you could roll it in, Steve. Because it could be the basis for your 5-year plan. You might be asking the same questions, and you can maybe do one survey and then try to have a follow-up if people can be in person.
Right.
So the direct did that, Complete Streets tried to have a follow-up, but I think it's.
I agree. It would be nice if it could just be one survey. I think my only concern would be just could it be done in terms of how the length of the survey, given what you want to cover might be. Some of it overlaps, but not all of it necessarily. So, but again, hopefully we could work through that. Tavi, you guys have done surveys in the past. Who's the survey expert on your staff? Is there one?
No, not really. The last survey we did, I worked on it and then we put it online, and we did another survey that I worked on with Kaimi. So it's basically the two of us. We would really be the ones, doing the survey. Although I would be talking with staff about it too. I mean, even if some staff members are not on the official committee,
Sure.
they would still be, we would still involve you. We can involve anybody, during that process, get their feedback and so
Of course. Kevin, I was wondering, the recent survey on the Governor Prince property, who is responsible? Was that something George did, or?
I believe, and we'll hear it again tonight, confirmed how the development of it took place, the questions. I believe it was the consultant, Judy Barrett, the Barrett Consulting Group. But at the same time, I would just add, and I know Sarah's behind the Town of Orleans seal for the surveys that I've worked with her on that are post-town meeting. We just develop a set of questions in a Word document, send it to Sarah, it gets posted as a link, and she actually then sends an output file that compiles it all. So we kind of do have some resources.
So we potentially could kind of do it in-house, so to speak, huh?
Could do it.
And take advantage of Sarah's expertise there, huh? Other thoughts or questions at this point? All right, well, I think this was a good kickoff discussion, and we'll certainly come back to it frequently, and particularly at our next meeting. So is there any other new business that anyone would like to bring up? Not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Thanks, Jan. Seconded. Thank you, Mary Beth. Okay, well, thank you all for being here today, and a good discussion, and enjoy the evening. I'm sure many of you are looking forward to the next meeting you can Zoom in.
I know.
I'll talk soon. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.